Beep, 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 beep. That's the sound of me tuning in. That's the sound of me tuning in to my own broadcast, 15 minutes late. What's up? What's up? That's how you do it. That's how you know you're a real G. The realest of the realist. Hello everyone. Let's begin with a story. Let's begin with story time. Story time with your local cardboard box. It was once upon a time there was a cardboard box who had to go to the doctor, and their appointment was at 1 p.m. and they thought they'd have tons of time in the world, and they did, even though the doctor talked at them for like an hour, and they really told them things that they already knew about their cardboard body, which is made of cardboard, and they don't really know why the doctor felt the need to tell them that for an hour, but lo and behold, they did. So the appointment lasted for an hour, and they said, I've got plenty of time. And then they got dragged to the grocery store. And in the grocery store, they stood around mostly and looked at vegetables. And because the doctor just told them, hey, you should eat more vegetables and also more protein. You should eat more vegetables and protein. And I said, yeah, that's probably right. So I looked for vegetables and protein. And anyways, long story short, the grocery store is a vacuum of time where one disappears amongst the food and time ceases to exist. So I was standing around like, geez, gotta hurry up. Gotta hurry. Time's running out. It's almost 3. It's almost time to stream. And we were trying to hurry. We were trying to go. And of course, one thing led to another. There was a line at the checkout. The checkout, what do you call that terminal? The checkout terminal was just like, oh, I'm gonna not work today. So the cashier was just like, oh, ha, ha, ha. The machine's having issues. And I'm just standing there, dying a little bit. Just trying to keep it cool. Just trying to keep it real. Trying to be a real G. Trying to be a real baller and not be stressed. And I wasn't, and I knew I was going to be late at that point, so I just said, oops, sorry. So sorry, that's why I'm late, is the grocery store and the doctor. Things just took a lot longer than I thought. And I had to have blood work done, and then I didn't, and that was a whole thing. Sure, yeah, why not? We're just shooting the shit here. This stream's already a train wreck. I'm already 15 minutes late. Anecdote part 2. Or I guess it's more of like a secret anecdote within the first anecdote. The Hypnagogia stream's really just running into itself here. But I was at the doctor's office talking to the doctor, which they were a dietitian, actually. They weren't my doctor. And so the dietitian is chatting me up, and they go, hey, do you want a follow-up appointment? I feel like we covered all of our bases here. And I say, yes, that's okay, because I have an appointment with my actual doctor next week. And the dietitian says, that's weird. My thing here says you don't have any appointments ever, because I'm your only one here. And I say, boy, dietitian, that's strange, because I just got off the phone last Friday with the reception here, and they told me I had an appointment and I needed to have more blood work done. So not only did this appointment take me like an hour, but I had to go over to the reception and talk to the receptionists and say, hey, don't I have an appointment that you made for me, that I wrote down, that you made for me? Like, I'm certain this was, like, I'm not just having the Mandela effect here. I'm positive this conversation happened. Because not only did this happen, and apparently they never made an appointment, but apparently I didn't need more blood work done. And so I even called this morning the same receptionists and asked, hey, I'm supposed to have more blood work done. I was hoping to do that today. I don't know where the forms went. You told me you sent off the forms, but I don't know where they went. And we had a conversation about that, right? So as early as this morning, they were on the same track that I was supposed to have another appointment and more blood work done. And somehow in a few hours between that phone call this morning and my appointment this afternoon, my appointment just got deleted, and everyone was like, no, you don't need more blood work done. It's fine. It's cool. You're fine. It's good. They probably looked at my blood and said, "What is this strange black nebulous mess? We don't want to look at this ever again. We don't want to stare at your eldritch horror blood." Which is fine. That's fine by me. Big win in my books. No more blood work. Yippee. But aside from that, yeah, they said I'm healthy. They said I'm good. They said I eat good for a cardboard box. But I should eat more vegetables and protein. They suggested I eat less garbage in the morning. And by garbage, I mean less pancakes. And that's going to be hard because I really like eating pancakes. I made pancakes today. And it was really tasty. So that's a thing. But anyways, that's why I'm late. Because life gets in the way sometimes. And unfortunately, this means I haven't had time to prep. I was really looking forward to having a really solid stream today where I'd know what I was talking about. But unfortunately, you get the same garbage stream as always where I have to fumble through my own writing and go like, oh, geez, yeah, what is in this chapter? I don't know. I haven't read. Oops. I got really excited about having not read there for a second. My apologies. It happens. Sometimes you just get real peppy. Yeah, unfortunately, we have to go through the usual stream. So let's get it started. We're 20 minutes late. This stream is already hell, but hopefully we can fix it. I have read the chapter. It's just that I've read it about 8 times. So I'm all the chapters start to blend together. It's like how. It's like how you can remember The Lord of the Rings vaguely, but that part with Tom Bombadil always gets a little messy because you usually just kind of gloss over it in your mind when you're thinking about Lord of the Rings. Probably because it got taken out of the film, but I digress. We don't include the Rings of Power here in this void. We don't take those. Thank you. Otherwise... yeah, I think that's it. Let's get started. We're here in chapter 17. A good chapter. If you're a fan of Teal going and being transient, Teal spends a lot of this chapter just like wandering around, and then they have a conversation near the end where she's pretty tired, and then she gets a little upset, and then she leaves. That's chapter 17. Thanks for coming, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your time. I'll see you next time. See you next week. Just kidding. I tricked you. But yeah, this chapter involves a lot of moving parts. It's pretty big. There's a lot of notes. Honestly, with me being late, we might just run the whole stream with just me yapping, which is really annoying. Because like I said, I wanted to have this stream on lock, but hey, maybe next time. Maybe in part 3, I'll have the stream on lock. Not today. I digress. We start here with Teal having left the bard. Teal leaves the bard. She's feeling a little agitated, and she's trying to leave the university. She doesn't do this in a very good way. She doesn't do this in a way that suggests she really wants to leave. She does this in a way that suggests, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and I don't know where I'm going because I'm not really a student here, which is good. That's the vibe we want to go for here, right? That's what we're headed for. That's what Teal would be feeling right now. Given the parameters of how we're intending to adjust the ending of chapter 16, the beginning of this chapter will likewise need to reflect that change. So Teal here is going to be feeling different things. She's going to be in a different state of mind. She's probably going to still end up wandering around aimlessly because that's what she does. But the general mood of herself and the reason why she's going about, the reason why she's kind of thoughtful and feeling weird right now, that's all going to change. We really need to push this idea that she's agitated, that she's fidgeting, that she's out of sorts, she's off balance, she's feeling unease. I think doing this in a way where she's idly playing with Lacrimosa's lantern is a good way to tie the moth into this segment. She can even maybe like voice some idle concerns to Lacrimosa. She might even try playing her banjo here, like going over the things she just learned as a form of comfort, as a form of distraction. So that's with Teal herself, right? Teal just needs to be like a little more active here in her own state of mind. Whether that means talking to Lacrimosa or doing something, she needs a little more acting here, where she's very passive. She's just kind of walking around right now, which isn't wrong. She can be walking around still. She should be, right? She's in motion. But she should be doing things at the same time, or at least thinking things, so that we, the readers, can understand how she's feeling. Because there's a lot going on in that little half-elf head right now. Likewise, the descriptions here are a little lackluster. The space around Teal as she goes through this undescript zone of the university is all very airy. There's not enough grounded landmarks. There's this bit where she's going by these statues. We don't even really talk about the statues. We mentioned this weird balcony. None of these are bad landmarks, but we get into the whole issue of where's Teal going? How did she get here? She goes up a staircase. She goes down a staircase. Okay. I don't know. There are these bits of where she is in the university of this campus, but how did she get there? What's going on in the in-between segment? Not that that's all really integral, but I feel like there could be a better job done here stitching her aimless wandering together. And by doing that, Teal will be better grounded in space, and the reader will likewise come along with her in a more stable manner rather than kind of, being a little confused through this segment. Because there is some nice descriptions here. There's some cool stuff, like the ceilings being quite high, the balcony with the chairs and the flowers, the weird statues, this strange open room. She exits this segment here. She goes through this doorway and there's topiaries and whatnot. Like, that's all good, but I don't know. There's just there's little bits here that are missing. There's gaps between it all that feels strange. It's letting the air through. It doesn't feel good. Like I have written here, she's not exactly observing, but we've had this issue a few times where, like, the reader shouldn't lose out on the space, on what the space looks like or feels like, just because Teal isn't in the mind space of being an active participant. We can still build setting here without Teal being invested in it. I really enjoy the segments. I much more enjoy the segments where Teal is actively invested in what's going on in the world around her, but she doesn't always need to be that way, right? Sometimes you just don't feel like it, and that's fine. I gotta move my mic. Give me a sec. It's probably not even gonna make any noise, but if you heard a weird noise, it's because I had to move the mic. My friend Michael here. I tell Michael all of the things I tell, all the things that I want the stream to hear, and then my good friend Michael translates it into words that normal people can understand. Michael's my interpreter. Thank you, Michael. I think that joke's gonna flop no matter how I try to trim down the stream, but we'll see how it goes. Let's see. Right, there's kind of this notion through this segment that there's a strange and eerie rigidity. There's an organization to things that ultimately is intended to come off as being creepy. But it really needs a bit more work done. It needs some polish. It doesn't come off as being too jarring. It doesn't even come off as, like, it's mentioned, but it's just like, okay, so what? We don't mention that it unnerves Teal, that it bothers her, that it keeps coming up. Like, why are there these segments of things that are strangely in line, needlessly acute, right? Like, why are they so perfect? Things like this shouldn't be so perfect, especially in an empty environment without students or faculty. We're trying to build to this air, right? That Teal's maybe just experiencing things that are kind of weird, or maybe her perception of the world around her isn't quite right, or maybe the world itself is just kind of a little weird, a little strange. We don't get answers to any of this, but we need to start doing some sprinkling here so that later on, when Teal goes off the deep end, it's not just a slap in the face. We've had little like, oh yeah, Teal's maybe just kind of going through it, isn't she? Um, on that note, we really need to emphasize this lack of life. Like I mentioned, this is supposed to be an empty building by the time Teal gets here, especially after she leaves the bard. There's no one around. There's no students anymore. There's no one here. It's just after hours school. And if you've ever been in a school after hours, whew, that's just creepy. Schools after hours, that's the stuff dreams are made out of. And boy, do I dream a lot about being in my school after hours. I don't know why. It happens a lot, but that's where I'm drawing from here, and that's kind of the vibe I want to go for. This like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. Also, things are like rigid and perfect and clandestine in a weird way. Like things are giving me this perverted aura, even though they shouldn't be. Like, oh, coming to a chalkboard that's perfectly clean and like the pieces of chalk and the erasers are all lined up. But that keeps happening throughout every classroom. Like there's no deviation from it, right? It's almost like somebody hit the copy paste throughout the school. That's kind of the vibe we're going for here. So we really need to ramp up this idea that there's just no one here, that things are empty, that this place is devoid of life, devoid of energy. Even though, to Teal's perspective, it's still it's still the middle of the afternoon. It's been the middle of the afternoon for what's starting to feel like days for her, and she still really hasn't pulled. She hasn't pulled it together. She hasn't put it together. She hasn't put it together that there's some strange gubbins going on with the light here. And this is another instance, right? This is another beginning instance where Teal's starting to put things together, that things are kind of weird. Not only here, but across the wherever. Teal hasn't pulled. Teal didn't pull a holographic card, unfortunately. Even though the Magic the Gathering booster packs are supposed to have one rare, Teal didn't pull the rare holographic card. Sorry, Teal. But back to what we were saying. Yeah, she's kind of stuck here. She's noticing that the light's being weird, and we need to tie that into this eerie atmosphere that we're trying to build here. But aside from that, Teal finds the exit eventually, and she seems pretty eager to leave, and that's fine, right? Teal finds this exit. She finds this big archway. There's a courtyard on the other side, and she spots a neighborhood, a pretty posh looking neighborhood, right? As one would find around a university. And I think there's a gag here. Yeah, there's a really nice gag here in this paragraph where I make fun of renters and landlords, and like, yep, that's got to stay, because those are heinous things in this world that we live with for no reason. Even though they're clearly extorting land, which is messed up. Thank you, Western imperialism. Love you for that one. But she goes off through this neighborhood, and she's just kind of thinking. She's mulling things over. And she seems really eager to leave, but then she doesn't seem relieved at all once she's gone. There's no, there should be this sense of like, okay, finally, like I'm out of the university. I don't have to keep thinking about the bar. There's a weight off my shoulders. Not that that thought completely leaves her, but she feels freed, as if she had just been caged by this, bureaucratic institution of education. So that's weird. Why doesn't she feel relieved? She's been kind of feeling tense this whole time, and she clearly she wants to leave, and she doesn't feel relief when she leaves. That's odd. And it is dulled by this overarching sense of, I still don't know what I'm doing. She's thankful. She's yippee, I left. Okay, now what? Right? That's the notion we're playing with here. She skips along. She's wandering through these cottages, these mansions, these manors, And she ends up spying in the distance. She sees a castle. She sees the towers of a castle, and she thinks that's pretty weird. How did I miss that? How did I miss a whole castle? And being Teal, being nosy and persistent on getting to the bottom of things, she decides to go check it out. And that's cool. I feel as though, however, between this neighborhood and Teal deciding to go check out the castle, we don't linger here very long, unfortunately. We don't get a great sense for what this ecotone, as I'm calling it, it's not quite an ecotone. I guess it's like an urban ecotone. How this shifting area between the campus and the castle, we don't get a great sense for how this middle space looks like or feels like. We're told it's kind of, there's manors, there's nice houses, but I wonder if we might linger on one manor in particular, just to have like a good sense of what it looks like, of what this area feels like in a vignette. I feel by doing that we can really, like, we can just have a paragraph narrowing in on one building that Teal stops and admires, and then that gives us a good sense for this transitionary area where she's walking through. She has this pause, she sees the castle, and then she thinks, okay, well, I guess I'll go in that direction. By doing that, we just, without doing too much more work, we can build up this neighborhood and have it feel like an area. We can maybe even have Teal see people here. Maybe she sees some people living. Maybe she sees some servants at work or people in the yard, something. But just to put a little bit of garnish of life in this segment, I think would do a lot more to make it feel real, and also to juxtapose it from the previous scene where she was in this lifeless, harrowing, dingy environment, something that she had been in and was lived in, but has slowly become twisted, and I don't want to deal with that anymore, right? But she's in this neighborhood. Okay, there's people here, right? Like, she's grounding herself again. She was up a little bit, but she's back down. Okay, there's people here. This neighborhood's fine. Okay, whew. I can be cool again. I can be Teal again. I can go explore a little bit. Okay, I got my bearings, right? She's cool. She's fine. The fact that she does suddenly spy a castle, in my opinion, isn't too jarring. It's not the end of the world. It lends a bit of mystique to this, to the castle in the distance. Like, oh, it's just been there. How have I not noticed that? Well, like, I don't know. Maybe it's a creepy castle in this weird city you've been in. I don't have to explain everything to you. And so, like, I think that's fine. The castle can just abruptly appear, quote unquote. But we should definitely have that notion. We shouldn't just skip over how, oh, Teal just suddenly finds it. We should address it a little bit. We should add a bit of context to how has Teal missed this castle for so long? And even if she just makes up excuses like, oh, well, I guess it's kind of, even though it's up on a hill, I guess it's hidden by the wall, but shouldn't I have seen the wall here? I guess it's behind these trees, right? It's kind of, this castle is, as we learn, tucked within this area of greenery. It's sort of a historical monument kept within a green space, this big park with all these old trees. And she can kind of be thinking, okay, well, sure, yeah, these are big trees. I guess I just didn't see it from a distance. Oh, the campus must have been in the way. If I did see anything from the distance, I must have just assumed it was part of the university. And she can maybe even have a beat here where she turns around and looks back at the university and starts thinking, like, how big was that place? Was it? And she maybe tries to retrace her steps and just thinks, I don't remember. I couldn't tell you how I got in, like where I got in or where I got out relative to anywhere else I am right now. Is this neighborhood the same neighborhood I was walking around in earlier? Am I at the north end of the school or the south end? I have no idea. And it doesn't really matter, but Teal can start having these gears shift in her head of, oh, this place is weird, and space maybe doesn't mean everything to me like I thought it should. That's kind of gross. That's a gross thing. Maybe I'm not a 3D being, and she's not going to go that far, of course. I'm speaking in hyperbole. But she should have a beat here to ruminate on, how on earth did I miss a giant castle? How does that happen? Um, how does it happen? I don't know. That's a draft 2 issue, right? It's an issue for future me. What she does see of the castle needs a bit more texture. However, she's going through this forest and she sees some of the castle. She sees the gatehouse. She sees some of the outer wall. And that's really all we get of a dusting, of a coating of what the castle looks like from the outside. We should really sink our teeth in a little more, right? And to incorporate Teal's senses into what she senses, into what she figures out here, what she sees, what she smells, what she feels. She can even go up to the wall, right? And maybe touch it. I don't know. It don't matter, but we should linger a little more here on what the castle has going on for it, its aspects. It's meant to, it has a very distinctive shape. It's built from these very old weathered stones. It's, it's positioned, like I mentioned, on this hill. What do you call that? A motte? Like a motte and bailey? I forget which one's which. Is the bailey the outer wall? It doesn't matter. But it's up on a hill. It's in this green space. We don't really get a great sense for any of this. And so in the next draft, that should really be addressed that, hey, the castle's kind of a feature here. We should maybe talk about it instead of just saying, it's an old castle. It's an old castle. It's over there. Whatever. Just go look up Edinburgh Castle. Just go look up Edinburgh Castle online. You'll get the gist. You'll get it, right? You'll figure it out. You're a smart kid. You just include a JPEG of Edinburgh Castle here and call it a day. So she ends up going from this. She spies the castle in the distance. She says, okay, well, I guess I'll head in that direction. And thus she does so. And I like, that's okay, right? That's the course of action she should take. But I feel like both of those beats before she gets to the castle, this neighborhood and the forest, I already described the neighborhood, but the forest as well could also use a little more love. Teal doesn't need to have such like an expedient process. She can have this easy jaunt along this this route. And in doing this, we can sink our teeth into, or at least stop and admire, stop and smell the roses, these two distinct locations that exist between the university and the castle. We just don't do really a good job of loving either location. I know I've said that kind of weirdly, but they just feel both like haphazardly, almost like road signs as we're going along. Okay, yes, check. Teal goes through the neighborhood. Great. Check. Teal goes through the forest. Wonderful. Can we get to the castle already? Like, chop chop. If we're gonna have these two beats in here, let's give them what they deserve. It doesn't have to be a lot, but just some niceties, just a bit of coloring here to flesh them out a little bit, I think would do a lot to make them both settings that Teal is traveling through, rather than just beats along the route before she gets to the castle. That said, there's an important caveat here that Teal is ascending. She's ascending this hill as she's going through this forest, and that's great, that's fine, but we should really make a point of describing how this incline is wearing Teal out. That she's been on her feet since she got here. She has been walking around pretty much non-stop for quite some time. She's been doing a lot, right? And she might have had small breaks here or there, like she sits with the bard. Sure, she sits for a 10-minute conversation. That's not going to rest her legs. And we don't need to dwell on how tired she is. We don't need to fall into this, like I'm doing this kind of right now. I'm not doing it. It's part of part 3. It's a bigger part of part 3. A bigger acknowledgement of it, that Teal's getting really tired, and we don't need to say it in that way. We don't need to keep bringing up like, oh yeah, Teal's exhausted, Teal's really struggling, Teal can't walk properly, Teal keeps losing her balance. We don't got to say that here. We just got to mention it. Teal's going up the hill. She's feeling a little winded. She maybe stops and leans against a tree and thinks like, oh wow, like, yeah, I'm pretty tired. Anyway, I gotta keep going. No time to fuss. I gotta keep going. I gotta keep walking up this hill. And maybe she has a little conversation with Lacrimosa. We can do anything we want, but just as long as we hint at the notion that Teal is becoming weary. She's losing that pep in her step, you know? Kind of like me. Like me because I didn't get to go for a walk today, so I've lost my pep in my step. That's why I'm sitting. That's why I'm always here on a chair, because I'm tired. I'm sleepy. I don't sleep good, so I never have pep in my step. I don't think that joke's going to make it into post, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take a small sip of water. Delicious. Thank you. Thank you, liquid. Okay, so, right, Teal gets tired on the incline. Great. She's going through the forest. Our half-elf hero is going through this forest, and she spies this gatehouse. She thinks, honestly, like, that's pretty great. Super. A gatehouse? Wonderful. And she starts thinking to herself, like, it's kind of weird that no one's here. It's kind of weird that there's this big castle and no one's present. Isn't that a little strange? She doesn't dwell on it too long because she is inclined to maybe go snooping through a place she shouldn't be, as Teal is wont to do. So she's heading over to the gatehouse, but she really just, I don't know, reading through this section, she's in the forest, and then she just sort of shows up at the gatehouse. She spies it, and then she's just there. How does she get there? How does she get over to the gatehouse? What path does she take? Is it a nice path? Are there more trees in the way? Does she have to go uphill a little more? Does she take a turn on the bend? I don't know. And it's weird that it's just never mentioned. She's just kind of in the forest. She goes, oh, look, it's part of the castle. And then she's just there. She ends up getting to the gatehouse and kind of having this brief period of introspection where she's observing the castle at large and thinking about where the staff are and kind of just dwelling on her thoughts a little bit. All through here, it's all pretty fine. It's all pretty, like, solid writing. There's nothing really... I imagine it will change a little bit, as most of the book will in Draft 2. But for now, it was fine. It's just fine writing. Like, it could be improved, sure, but nothing through here evidently needs changes. So Teal, right, as I mentioned, Teal gets nosy. She decides to go and enter, which is fine. That's where she's got to go to advance the plot. She's got to follow the path that takes her to the next individual that she's got to talk to. Not really. That's not how books work, but you know what I'm saying. She enters, but there's the sense of space here really just falls apart. There's really no good. I get so lost reading through here where she's headed and what she's doing, and not so much her direction, right? Like we've talked earlier that Teal going through places lacks a direction. It's more so I don't know where to put her. I don't know where mentally she is here. Just because it's not described, it's not mentioned. She goes through this gatehouse. Sure, okay, great. But then what? Like, where is she? What is she? Is there a courtyard? Are there walls here? Is there a garden? Is there a fountain? Like, what can we put as little mental landmarks so that we know what Teal is, where she's going, where she's headed? I mentioned there's like a keep in the distance. Cool. And then I just kind of assume, yeah, she's headed to the keep. Follow along, reader. Teal's headed to the keep. But then between here and the keep, the scale, the sense of space, the details of it are just kind of left. They all just fall apart in the wind, which isn't good. That's not good. So once Teal gets past this curtain wall, once she enters through the gatehouse, I really need to do a better job tethering Teal to this space, and that will probably involve just better understanding the space mentally. Like I might even make a map for myself of the castle, just so I myself can put Teal, mark her down with a little X, and say, here she is in this paragraph, here she is in that paragraph, here she goes up here when she gets to the front gate, right? Because in between Teal going through the gatehouse and her coming up to the keep is just like, ooh, I don't actually know where she is. She could be anywhere. How big is she? Is this a huge castle? Is it a small castle? We don't know, because we don't have any sense of where Teal is between the gatehouse and the keep, which is bad. That's not good at all. There's some comments made in through here where Teal spies a garden, and she's speaking to herself, so that's got to be in Elvish. This is mostly me just saying that, like, yeah, as she's going through this compound, Teal should actively be observing, right? She's interested in where she's going. This is a weird shortcoming of this segment where she's just wandering through a space, and she isn't doing her normal thing of looking at everything. And as such, we as the readers fall off because Teal has just forgotten to do what Teal does, which is very unfortunate. So one way to brace this issue, to correct it, is to just tell the reader what Teal's seeing, what she's passing by, what she's looking at, what she's feeling, what she's sensing, right? Like we've been trying to do through the whole book. I don't know why I just dropped it here, but hey, future me, could you not? Hey, future me, it's me again. Could you maybe not? Could you fix this part for me? Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Additionally, we need to come back to the idea that this is a desolate space, that there is no life here. We kind of bring it up that Teal's kind of confused that no one's working here, but we don't mention that, like, yeah, it is lonely here. There is an eerie sense to the atmosphere because there is a lack of life. We just never mention that. And that's very unfortunate because things get a little weird in the castle, and Teal's starting to get this sense, right? She went through the forest, through the neighborhood. She was coming down. She was grounding herself. And she's coming back to this notion that, like, uh-oh, why aren't there people here? This is kind of weird. Are things maybe just strange here? Am I strange here? So we can add that. We can add that into Teal's observation that, yeah, she's looking at things. Here's how the castle looks. But, isn't this a building where people should be? Isn't this a bakery, right? Like, Teal can poke her head in all of these little vignettes and think like, oh, this should be a place where life is. Where is it? Oh, the guardhouse with no guards. Oh, the bakery with no bakers. Where's the staff? Why am I in this garden? The fountain's running. Where is everyone? Why is the front door open, right? Any number of things that Teal can be observing and witnessing and feeling can be tied in with this lingering, dreadful aura that things aren't right here. There should be living beings here, and there aren't. Why aren't there? I'm going to keep exploring and keep weirding myself out, because ideally I'll find a person and I can put all of my doubts to rest. That this is just a weird, empty, haunted castle. And maybe I even bring that up. Maybe that's something that gets brought up, that maybe Teal thinks this place is haunted. Maybe she's worried there's just ghosts here or something. I don't know. It could be anything, but we need to incorporate that in here. Teal eventually, like I mentioned, gets up to the keep. She finds that the door is ajar, and being a silly little half-elf who doesn't know where she shouldn't stick her pointy little nose, she just goes inside. Teal just goes, okay, well, the door's open, so no one said I can't go in. So she just goes in. Teal just goes into this castle. And that's cool. Like, that's fine. That's very on brand for Teal to just be so inquisitive that she doesn't respect trespassing borders. Like, you know, why? Those are pretty stupid anyways for the most part. You know, if you want to go walking through a castle and you don't have a ticket, whatever, that should be free admission anyways. You listening, Edinburgh? That should be free admission. Let me in your tea room. Let me in your tea room, Edinburgh Castle. Why can't I have tea? Why is it like $100? That's BS. I get it if you're ordering Prosecco, but come on, it's tea. Give me a cup of tea. It costs you like 50 cents. Ugh. I'm not bitter, by the way. I'm not. I'm definitely not bitter. What was I saying? It was too bitter to remember. Teal's in this castle. She enters and she immediately is a little lost because this front foyer is kind of just open and there's a lot of directions to go. She doesn't really, like, all of this is pretty solid writing. I don't really have any, like, once she gets to the keep, once she's inside, the sense of space immediately is like, okay, she's in a building. I start describing the places in the building. I start describing the direction, right? And it's all like, okay, why weren't we doing this before? Why have you done this in the back half of the chapter, but the first half of the chapter you just didn't, huh? Why'd you do that? Past me? Oh. Present me's got no idea. Present me is just here to tell future me what to do. But she gets inside and there's a lot of different routes she could take. There's a lot of doors, there's a staircase, there's some corridors, there's a lot of space. And she's a little confused. She ends up asking Lacrimosa as kind of like a funny, haha, what should I do moment. She asks Lacrimosa which direction they should go in. She almost takes this aside as sort of a second thought of like, oh yeah, Lacrimosa. Oh, maybe I'll ask them, haha. She does this. It should really, first of all, it should come back as, it should come to her, the notion to ask Lacrimosa. It should come to her as a light bulb moment. This idea of, aha, yes, Lacrimosa. I will ask my good friend Lacrimosa for help. Less as like a stumbling upon the idea and more of like, an opportunistic idea to have a bit of a gag, to be a little silly, to ask my weird little fire moth which way we should go. And honestly, aside from that, like the thing she says to Lacrimosa, that's all fine. Having Lacrimosa inadvertently, whether or not it is inadvertent, is up to the reader. But having Lacrimosa here pick a direction, that's fine. I think that's a good beat. However, what ends up happening is they end up going down this leftward hallway on the advice of Lacrimosa. And they're wandering along and things get a little weird. Teal's not sure if she's passed by the same painting once or twice. She starts to feel as if the hallway is maybe spinning in on itself, as if it's kind of corkscrewing, as if it's like, it feels like a snail shell getting a little tighter and tighter. She's wigging out a little bit. Just like I'm yawning out a little bit. It's that time of the day. It's 4 p.m. It's my regular everyday 4 p.m. yawn time. It doesn't help that I've been running around all over the place since earlier, but heyo, we persist. But yeah, she's going down this hallway and things are getting a little weird, which I think is good. We have another little nugget of Teal experiencing the surreal. But it should be a little more jarring. There's very little language that appreciates. It's kind of just mentioned, I think, is the big problem. Is Teal's going down this hallway. It's monotonous. It's odd. She feels ill at ease, but we're not really told why. We're just told like, these are the things she's feeling. These are the things she thinks she's witnessing. I think we can settle here just a little bit longer. Just to appreciate this idea that, yeah, once again, Teal is in this space that feels a little sinister, and then she starts going a little crazy. She starts experiencing things that are too out of the ordinary to be factual. Not that she really has any doubt at this point. She's not thinking to herself like, oh, this is weird. This is, I should be concerned about this. She's just going about and starts noticing, oh, didn't I pass that painting? Isn't this hallway kind of twisting a little weirdly? Should I be noticing these things, or should I just be going along with it? Maybe the architect of this castle is just a little screwy. Not that we really need to embellish. We don't need to hang on this note for too long, but we should appreciate what it's trying to do rather than just glossing over it. It really feels like it's just tossed in here haphazardly, which isn't great. This should be more of a beat going forward. She ends up going down this hallway, her and Lacrimosa, find their way to the end of the hallway. And even that's kind of another note here that it should feel as if, coming back to the idea of when we were talking about the guard, how Teal should feel as if she's suddenly entering a new loading zone. How the area where she was previously differs substantially from the area she's in now. Before, it was more of a weird, like, okay, the world is kind of like, we went from rural to urban. This should be more of a sense of, I went from unreality to reality. I'm suddenly in a very normal looking space that has nothing wrong with it. And if I turn around and look, yes, the map behind me is suddenly different because it's probably a skybox. But if I go back down the hall, are things going to be weird again? I don't know if I want to find that out. And that's kind of the notion we should be playing with here. That there should be this jarring difference between where she was and where she ends up. Because, as I was trying to say, she ends up in this smoking room. And it's in here that she finally starts slowing down a bit. This is where the rest of the chapter really takes place. It itself is a fine area. But yeah, like I was saying, we really just need to hang on that idea that there's a jarring difference between Teal being in the hallway and being a little messed up, and then Teal getting here and this smoking room, this very ornate smoking room, just being kind of normal. It's just a normal space. I mean, it's really decadent. It's very lavishly furnished room, but Teal just needs to have a little moment here, like, okay, was that real? Was I actually going through a hallway twisting in on itself? I don't know. This room seems pretty normal, so maybe not. Maybe I was just imagining things. Maybe I do just really need to take a time out and have a breather. She doesn't really get one, unfortunately, because here in the smoking room, she sees this figure. She sees this figure with their back towards her, and Teal thinks, oh, finally, somebody to talk to, somebody I can get some information out of. And she's trying to get their attention, and she's just ultimately failing again and again, which starts frustrating her, as it would anyone. However, given the frequency of Teal having been ignored throughout this section, right? She got ignored by the architect. She got ignored by the what's-his-face, the academic. She was largely put off by the merchant. The dealer, the mogul, didn't really want anything to do with her. Teal's been having encounter after encounter of people who were mostly indifferent to her presence, especially when she's been trying to engage them. There have been a lot of people who have just been kind of blowing her off, and that's not cool. So by this point where Teal's getting the cold shoulder, she might react a little differently. She's, it ends up, the reason she's not getting any attention is because she's talking to a mannequin. She's talking to a mannequin that's displaying this finery, this robe, these robes and silk dress that, the castle wants on display. So she's not talking to anyone, but she should be approaching this mannequin not with the sense of, I wonder if they didn't hear me. Oh, maybe I should speak up. Oh, I wonder if, maybe they just don't want to talk. She should really be coming into this situation with, oh, another jerk who is ignoring me, who's just flat out does not want to talk, can't even give me the time of day to say, hey, I'm a little busy, right? she should be stewing a little bit almost immediately. Like, what gives? What is with people today that they don't want to talk? What is wrong with people? I am being so nice. I'm trying to be so polite with everyone. And I just keep getting this awful, ignorant vibe. Why do I keep running into jerks? So she just needs to, not what she's doing here, none of it's really wrong, but she should come into the situation with a different mindset. She's just like a little too polite, and then her immediate reaction right now is like, okay, well, I guess if they're ignoring me, I'll just leave, right? She would be definitely starting to be upset here. She would be starting to have these this bubbling sensation of indignance, like she's been wronged, which, you know, given how often she's been ignored, that she definitely has been. But yeah, like I said, she ends up discovering it's a mannequin because somebody else enters the room. Our namesake, our chapter namesake here, the aide, enters the room through a secret bookshelf. They kind of just appear at the other side of the room, and they're like, what are you yelling about? What are you doing in here? Right? They immediately go in on the third degree, and we'll get to that in a second. But it's a really good beat. They really just startle Teal. But they're entering, right? This whole entering through a secret bookcase really needs to be more clear. It ends up kind of muddying the scene that the aide just appears, and then afterwards they're like, oh yeah, secret bookshelf. I don't know if we should maybe cut the narration to describing a bit more about how the aide actually enters, about how they maybe like swoop in from a side entrance that had previously gone unnoticed to Teal, or what have you. But having them enter the room a lot more clearly wouldn't go amiss, I think. Because right, this is their introduction. This is their first instance of coming to the scene, and just having it be like this very cut and dry, here they are, here they spooks Teal. Teal goes, and then they carry on with their conversation is just kind of like, I don't want to say trite, but it feels haphazard. It doesn't feel thought out. And so if we incorporate the aid in, like, incorporate their entrance into them startling Teal, I think that'll read a lot better. Additionally, there's a segment in here, I don't know exactly where I'm talking about here, but we start the idea of melding the narration and Teal's thoughts. And I think this is a good spot for it. I believe we started doing it earlier, and earlier is too early, but I think here is a good spot to do it, especially if it's done subtly. I can't remember where. I wish I had wrote down the example exactly for the stream, but unfortunately, I don't always write these notes with the stream in mind. I write them for my future draft in mind. So when future me goes through this, they're going to have a great time. They're going to have a great time being like, yeah, sure, that checks out. Fine, I'll keep it. Or maybe I won't. It's future me. I can do whatever I want. But like I was saying, I think this is a good time, a good point in the story. We're getting to the end of part 2, and we're starting to introduce these ideas that, oh yeah, Teal's maybe going through it a little bit. And this is a really subtle way we can suggest that by almost meta. It's not quite meta. It's not quite a fourth wall break either, but we have this weird notion that Teal's thoughts are mushing together with the narration. And where does the narration begin, and where does it end? And where is Teal in this narration? And is Teal the narrator? Surely she's not, because her thoughts are distinct except when they're not. So does that mean the narrator's Teal? But surely they wouldn't be, because if the narrator were Teal, then why aren't they writing in the first person? So we're left with this weird gray area, which I think is delightful, especially when you start thinking like this. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just saying I like this aspect of how I wrote this. That we end up in this gray zone of like, I'm actually not sure who wrote this book. I'm not certain who wrote it, other than the idea that like, hey, we get this weird chapter later on where it's a letter, and that's strange. A letter from the author. That's really weird. But otherwise, there's this hideous little idea that, oh yeah, maybe Teal is the narrator, or maybe the narrator's like this weird omniscient being, or maybe the narrator is it me? Is it a narration because I'm reading it? Am I part of this process? And inevitably, one reader is part of the process. A book does not read itself. It is written. And so as a reader, you are compelled to be part of the narration. Those words won't put themselves into your head, dummy. You gotta put them there. And guess what? That makes you an active participant in the book. Congratulations, you did this. Good job. Just kidding. It's mostly me. It's mostly my fault. But I'll get back on track here. The nade. Somebody throws a grenade in the room and Teal dies. That's how the book ends. The aide comes in and they start chatting with Teal. They have a really great physical description. We're told they're wearing these very ornate robes, that they're kind of long and regal looking. And I think they would really benefit from a quirk. Just something that they maybe keep doing, a habitual stance. Maybe they stand with their fingers steepled together, or maybe they often place a hand on their chin as if in thought. Just something to color them a little bit. I think would really work in wonderfully here to put a little bow on the wrapping that the aide already has as a character. On that note, as far as character traits go, I think we really need to emphasize that they're quite shrewd and quite keen. We get a bit of a smattering, especially as they first start talking, that they're pretty observant, that they notice things about Teal that others might not pick up on. Like, obviously they have the benefit of Teal being pretty haggard at this point, but they're immediately like, oh, you look kind of tired. Are you all right? How did you get in here, right? They're immediately on the attack of like, hey, it's my job to be shrewd and keen. Let me exemplify that. So we get a little bit of that, but I think we can intensify that. Maybe we can have them note certain things about Teal. Maybe they notice like the bags under her eyes. Maybe they even notice her ears, of all things. Or maybe they notice her accoutrement and they mention something about like, oh, you're a little bit like, you're too well dressed to just be here out of the blue. Do you have an appointment? Because we weren't expecting anyone today, at least no one of high caliber. Like, are you, maybe we can make a joke that because later on when Teal meets the aide again, somebody makes a joke that like, hey, are you the new jester? Are you the court musician? And maybe this can be where that joke comes from. Maybe the aide is like, oh, are you here for the court musician position? The court musician position. Say that 5 times fast. So maybe we can have like a precursor joke, and the later joke is actually a callback. That could be a funny gaffe. But just something here to show off that like, yeah, the aide is actually a pretty like, they don't just have this position out of nepotism. They're actually qualified to do their position. They're just kind of garbage at it. They start talking, and like I mentioned, the aide is interrogating Teal a little bit. They're asking, how did you get in here? What are you doing here? And Teal's just telling it how it is. Like, I don't actually know why I'm here. I kind of just stumbled in. The door was open. And the aide basically explains like, okay, well, yeah, that's on us, I guess. There's not really like, we're working on a skeleton crew here. There's not really a lot of people present. And that's all fine. That's all good. But we come to a moment in this conversation where Teal really has the wind taken out of her sails, which is good, right? She's beginning to feel the lethargy that she took note of earlier as she was going up the hill. Remember how we were talking about putting that down? It comes to fruition here because Teal's really like, oh yeah, no, I am tired. I'm really feeling lightheaded. I'm feeling kind of dizzy. Like, I think I need to sit down or something. Like, I don't think I'm going to make it much longer if I don't rest for at least a minute. And that's good, right? That's a good notion. But we also, I think, need to build upon her fear, right? This strange fear that was starting to build in her as she was going down the hallway, as she was coming through the courtyard. We really need to emphasize that this is something that's wearing away at her. This isn't just, oh, Teal's been walking a lot. This is Teal's going through it. Teal's having a moment and she's just like not feeling good about any of these vibes. She's not a happy individual. She's really just going through some weird stuff in her life right now, and it's taking its toll on her. So we need to reference back to that fear, and we need to build on this idea that, you know, like I mentioned earlier, that Teal was really worried. Teal is still really worried, even if the aide is here, that this castle is empty, that this place might be haunted, right? Or, you know, worse, it's just the site of a mass killing or something. Like, maybe she's just hearing maybe there are people here, quote unquote, but they're all dead. Anything, right? Like, anything can go through this half-elf mind. But we need to mention that she's feeling pretty scared. She's feeling pretty frightful. She's anxious. She's not just coming through here at this point hoping to find a person to give her information. She's gotten to this point out of curiosity and then is continuing to go out of anxiety. Why haven't I seen a person yet? Why haven't I heard a person yet? Why is there no one here? This is a very big castle. There should be at least people working, you know, the stockyards, the stables. There's not even horses. What gives? This is so strange, right? And Teal feeling strange is going to make us as readers feel strange. Which, likewise, you know, when I'm saying Teal needs to be fearful, what I'm also saying is the reader should be a little freaked out during this segment. And we can tie those together. Whether we do that right now or we do it earlier, I don't know. It can go either way. It's good no matter where we put it in the segment, but something to mention. A lot of their conversation is ultimately pretty fine. There's a lot of these subtle hints. We see Teal during this back and forth sort of start to slouch, and she's starting to blink really slowly, and she's having trouble hearing the aide. She's having trouble keeping up with what they're saying. She's having trouble putting up this front, that's her usual effortless facade of tactility, of diplomacy is sort of starting to chip away here and there, where she's just like, yeah, what? Oh, yes, of course. She's not speaking like she usually is. Which is great, but I think they would ultimately be heightened by mentioning earlier her lack of energy. Not that I'm saying a lot of this needs to change. I don't think any of that needs to change. I'm saying these little nods to Teal being tired are great. If we build upon that earlier, if we mention back in the forest that going up the hill is making her tired, it's going to make this pay off here, where Teal is finally coming to a head of realizing, boy, yeah, I am tired. I don't think I can keep talking to this person. It's going to make this moment hit a lot more strongly because we did that legwork earlier on. As it is right now, okay, we get the sense Teal is tired, but it's like, okay, whatever. It's kind of, it's not coming out of nowhere, but it doesn't feel like the payoff that we deserve. If we work in the beginning, if we work hard earlier, the payoff here is going to be much better. Ultimately, Teal has this moment where she and the aide sit down. Right. She's feeling really tired, and she ultimately confesses that, like, yeah, man, I kind of just snuck in here. I'm pretty tired. And the aide is like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, you look wretched. Do you want to sit down for a minute? And they have a little bit, their conversation moves to a sofa nearby, to a seating area. She has this little conversation, but I think, pardon me, she has this little confession that, like, yes, I snuck in, but it should be much less conversational. She's, like we've mentioned before, she's feeling a lot less keen on being open to people, right? We noticed earlier, we got some instances of Teal being open earlier and that backfiring. And since then, she's a little reserved. She's not feeling like, she shouldn't be feeling that, oh, okay, I'll just open up to this total stranger. She should keep her decorum up here. She should be feeling this really like out of sort, this estranged sensation, kind of cloudy, that are, you know, they're coming across in her speech. But I think ultimately her actions aren't reading very well here, that she's not in line with who or what she's feeling in this moment here. And she should come off across as just being a little more conflicted, that she's unsure if telling the right, you know, if telling the truth here is the right thing, or she should just be maybe playing along with this, or she should just be lying, or she should just say, listen, man, I'm tired. I just want to go, you know, I don't know why I came here. I thought it was a cool spot. I thought it was a tourist attraction, right? She doesn't really come off as conflicted here. She just kind of admits to the aide what she did. A total stranger, mind you, somebody who she's never really talked to before. She's just being super open to, and that doesn't read very well in my mind. So Teal, through this little segment here, should be a little more conflicted, a little more unsure of what to do. She does end up eventually sitting down with the aide, and they have a bit of a conversation, and they come upon the idea that Teal's pretty lost and in need of directions, but more so than that, doesn't really know where to head in a broader sense. She's unsure if she should just, you know, maybe take a break and figure things out, or if she should keep pressing on, or if she should try to find more information. And if she does any of these things, how is she going to do any of that? She doesn't know where to find information. She doesn't have a place to rest. And if she goes forward, go forward where? She's just going to end up mindlessly treading ground without a direction. And she says all of this to the aide, and the aide kind of listens to her. She has this weird preconceived notion here that the aide is going to somehow answer her questions and lay this sage advice in her lap. I don't know why she thinks that. It doesn't really make sense, especially if we're leaning more into Teal's a big silly amnesiac. It's just like the notion itself is a little goofy. Why does she think that? Why does she think this stranger is just going to solve her problems? If it's been said earlier, which it kind of was mentioned, that they advise the monarch, you know, Teal might see that as an accolade, that might be a mark for their ability to guide and reinforce other individuals. But we make no mention of that. So if that's what she's thinking, we need to reinforce that idea that, like, okay, this person said they advise a head of state, so they must be pretty good at giving people advice. So maybe that's why she starts asking them all these questions here. This ultimately makes, she ends up questioning the aide and giving them a little bit of a test, to which the aide sort of falls for her trap. And if she's doing that, it makes a lot more sense if she's going in with this preconceived notion that, like, okay, you advise the head of a state, therefore your advice should be sound, but you are also a person I just met. So like, I might just test to see if you're bullshitting me right now. And that's what she does, which is fine. I think that's like a good setup. It ends with her being frustrated with the aide for giving all these very, very vapid responses. And ultimately, I think like, yeah, that's a fine way for the chapter to conclude. But her reasoning behind it, the force as to why she's doing all this legwork to suss out issues regarding the aid, really needs to be put in perspective. And we don't really do that right now. She kind of just starts rambling at the aid and hopes they'll figure her problems out for her. It's not a bad notion, but it needs to have some kind of backup. It needs to have some groundwork for it to make sense. Like I said, the ending here, pardon me, I'm getting ahead of myself. She's asking the aide all these things about which direction she should go. And the aide is kind of just like, yeah, that could work. Oh, that could work too. That's not a bad idea. Just giving all of these very careless responses. It seems as though they're more interested in carrying on, or how should I say, in maintaining the conversation than they are to concluding the conversation. And Teal starts to get a little frustrated with this. She was really hoping for somebody to finally tell her, like, one way or another, or tell her this whole bell tower thing is nonsense, or tell her to follow her dreams and never stop and don't look back, right? Just something. She just wants something out of this, but she ends up getting nothing out of it. And she, because of that, in spite of it, it's just ends up super frustrated. She starts attacking the aide a little bit by essentially, she accosts them by saying, you're not giving any advice. You're not giving me anything. You're just telling me what I'm saying is pretty good. You're not actually helping me come to a conclusion. You're not guiding me at all. Like, what kind of aide are you? This whole, like, I think this is all fine. Even the part about Teal getting upset is all cool. I think it ultimately just needs more polish. It just seems a little rough around the edges. So I think this is just like a draft 2 issue. Draft 2 issue number 11. Could you clean this up a little bit, please? I would really appreciate that. Thank you, future me. Twice in one episode. Hope you're doing all right. It just needs polish. It feels a little clunky at times, but I think, putting it through the grinder, it'll come out as a good sausage. I don't know why I said put it through the grinder, but whatever. We're sticking with the analogy. They have this little back and forth. Teal loses her cool. She accosts the aide. And her departing is honestly fine. She just storms out of the room. She leaves the room at the other side. And I think that's fine. That's very apt for Teal to do, especially because she has been doing that a lot lately. We're falling into this repetition of Teal having a bit of a, Teal's got a bit of an anger. Teal's got a bit of a fiery temper to her that when she is in this state, we're seeing it run parallel to her exhaustion. Teal normally, right? We got Teal normally at the beginning of the book. Teal normally is pretty level-headed. She's pretty patient with people. She's pretty willing to understand their point of view. We look back to the scoundrel who was very mean to Teal. And Teal just kind of let it, it upset her, but she let it wash off her back. Right? Like water off a duck's back. That's what I'm trying to go for here. I'm trying to make a duck joke. But here we see people maybe being less mean than the scoundrel, but Teal's just like, man, you are useless. You are mean. You are terrible. Like, you're just not a kind individual, and I don't want to put up with this. And she just leaves. She just leaves time and time again. She meets these bad people, and she's like, this is awful. I hate mean people. I'm leaving as I'm tired, and I'm upset, and I need a nap. And Lord, I know how you feel, girl. We all been there, right? At least that's what I hope. I hope everyone's been there, because I'm really leaning on the empathy card here. But yeah, like I said, her departure is fine. We could maybe sneak in a little bit here to incorporate Lacrimosa, that Teal feels like her and Lacrimosa have to leave. Like, she's under the impression that, like, she's not just here by herself. She is here with Lacrimosa. we're trying to get to this notion that Teal is linked to Lacrimosa. It's not just her, it's her and Lacrimosa. That she's coming to this notion that no matter where she is, Lacrimosa's there. And it being a little bug is not so much a little bug anymore. It is Lacrimosa. They're starting to become an entity in Teal's perspective, that they are an important individual worthy of acknowledgement at all points of time. Even though they are a little bug in a lantern, that lantern is perpetually on Teal, and we want to start getting at this idea that it is Teal and Lacrimosa. Just something to take note of. The aide kind of has this very tepid reaction. It is very in character, but they make no mention of like, should I just let this weird intruder go? Should I just let them leave? Are they just going to keep roaming the castle grounds? I don't know. They make no mental note of it. If we're trying to build a more shrewd and keen individual, then they should maybe hem and haw and maybe just have a line here of like, oh, I should make sure to notify the guards immediately. Yeah, I even have it written at the bottom here. I shall have a member of the Royal Guard scout out that riffraff later, right? They just need to kind of digest. You know, they're not really upset about the interaction, but they and this speaks to their character, that they're more concerned with the fact that there's a member who's not of the royal court just kind of running around the castle right now. They should deal with that at once. So that's, I think, would be a good way to close out this segment of just giving the aide not like the closure like we've done with other character. I don't think we don't need any closure with the aide, but they should at least react appropriately to the notion that this weirdo who's just entered the castle just stormed off on them, and they should probably do something about that, right? They're a work-oriented individual despite their incompetence with their own position. And maybe that's how they keep this gig. Maybe they're just like on top of bureaucracy. Maybe that's what makes them a good advisor. I don't know. Maybe we can poke fun of that idea. But for the time being, yeah, the ending's pretty fine. I think we just give the aide a little more of a stone here to stand on at the very end. Teal does her whatever, and she runs off in a huff. And everything's honky-dory. Everything's good. And with that, we're at the end of the chapter. We made it. Chapter 18, the monarch is right here. You'll never guess who Teal talks to next. I bet you'll never know. You'll never in a million years figure out who it is. But we do know who she did just talk to, and that was the aide. What did I call them in the beginning? The advisor? Yeah. Yeah, so Teal meets the aide in chapter 17. And yeah, that's it. We're done. We did the chapter. We went through it. It's a bit of a big chapter because there's a lot of transitioning between environments. There's a lot of... Never mind, I shouldn't make that. I shouldn't make that joke. No, I'm going to make that joke. There's a lot of trans people in this chapter. That's why it's so big. I don't know what correlation there is between trans people and bigness. I guess because they're a big deal, right? Right? Because they're cool. I don't know. I think they're pretty cool. I'm pretty, as a being without gender, I think that's pretty cool, you know? Fighting for your own gender, that's awesome. Go get it. Go get it, fam. Anyway, I forget where this was going. That's the end of chapter 17. That might even be the end of the stream. I'm pretty wiped. I wasn't doing a lot today, but just the fact that I was stressed out and on the go for several hours, I'm pretty beat. I don't know if I have it in me to like pretend to draw for 20 minutes. I'm pretty sure it's just Robin here anyways. So, you know, like whatever, man. Hey Robin, you mind if I clock out early this week? Let me know in chat if you mind. if that bothers you. You know, something else, whatever, I'm just going to sit here and chat for the time being. I've been waiting on a package since last week. It was supposed to be here yesterday. I don't know where that package is. In that package are new bike bladders for my, inner tubes for my bike tire, because I had another friggin' flat on my bike. And I was going to fix it this morning, but lo and behold, no new bike. No new, old, new bike tire, new, old. So that sucks. Now, like, I don't mind cycling indoors because it means I get to watch stuff on Netflix, which is pretty great. I get to catch up on things on Netflix that I've missed all year. But, you know, the weather's still really nice, so it kind of sucks. It sucks that I've missed the outdoor biking. And all because Amazon just really shat the bed on, like, I don't ever order from Amazon, but I did because I didn't know where else to order bike inner tubes from, like on last minute notice. But like, dang, Amazon, you all right? You good? You all right? Yeah, bestie, Robin in chat says autumn biking is fun. And yeah, it's probably one of my favorite times of the year to go for a bike because there's a lot of really nice scenic views around here. I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in the void, right? So in the void, there's a lot of great views. If you look to the left, you'll see the endless nothingness of time and space. And if you look to the right, you'll see the emptiness, the vast emptiness of the unknowable cosmos. Some of my favorite things, some of my favorite views. And we also have Larry. There's Larry over there. Larry, the orange tree, is just orange. It's orange all year round. But aside from that, it's mostly just a void. And Larry only shows up in October, so that's kind of funny. I don't know what the deal is with that, but we love Larry. We love Larry here in the void. And by we, I mean me. It's just me here. But yeah, I'm pretty tired. No one else is here. I don't think I need to have a Q&A period. I'm not going to get much done drawing. I was like, earlier in the day, I was thinking, yeah, I'll work on that thumbnail again. It'll be great. But there's no point in me opening up the thumbnail to work on it for 20 minutes. What am I going to do? What am I going to do in 20 minutes? Next to nothing, folks. Let's be real. So we're going to call it there. Sorry for being late. I apologize for this week's untechnical difficulties. For once, it wasn't a technical thing. It was just like my life got in the way. But hey, this happened. I've been doing this for like 3 months now, and this is the first time I've been late. Cut me some slack. We went over chapter 17. We went over chapter 17 this week. We talked all about how Teal is going to have to spend some more time in the neighborhood, spend some more time in the forest. We're going to have to ratchet up this idea that she's feeling uneasy, but also the idea that she's starting to feel tired. This lethargy is creeping up on her. She's starting to feel exhausted. And we're going to run that in tandem with this growing fear she's starting to feel, this anxiety that's building within her, that where she is kind of just a big weird place, and it definitely does not feel normal. And that's really hard for her to quantify because she can't remember much. So she's constantly having to weigh her options of, is this normal or is this really freaky and I should be maybe very concerned about what's going on. We need to build up those ideas a little more. A lot of the segments here are pretty solid. We need to do some better texture work on the castle that she finds. We need to incorporate Teal into the space a little more significantly. Right now she's kind of just floating around the castle until she ends up at the keep. Within the keep, we need to do a better job of grounding these eerie events that she experiences. We need to do some tweaking with her conversation with the aide. But ultimately, a lot of what she's doing with the aide is fine. We just need to work a little more with the more subtle aspects of how Teal's feeling, how she's feeling worried, how she's feeling exhausted, why she comes to the conclusion she does about the aide, who the aide is as an individual. We want to kind of build them up a little more. But other than that, like I mentioned, the ending is solid. Is really it's a little comical in some aspects, but Teal leaving all of a sudden, Teal just getting fed up and leaving, that's honestly all right. We need to ground the eight a little better in their role as a and technically an employee of this enterprise, this place, right? Whether it is actually a tourist attraction or if it is the head of state, we don't actually get told. But we need to ground them better as an individual. And I think doing all of that, removing all the rough edges here, is going to really solidify this chapter and make it holistically from start to finish more enjoyable to read. And that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, making it a better, more cohesive narrative that is more enjoyable to read and does Teal the justice she deserves. Because at the end of the day, right, it's all for her. I was even going to cancel the stream today because, I was thinking, oh, geez, I'm already so late. Maybe I'll just run this next week. But hey, you can't just do that. You can't just give up on Teal. It's all for her. We got to do this for her. But that said, I'm pretty tired and I don't want to draw for 20 minutes because that's kind of pointless. So we'll call it here. Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate it. As always, I hope you enjoy the rest of your whatever. And I also hope you have a good snack today. I don't know about you, but I kind of treated myself. I knew I was going to be late, so I bought a tasty muffin from the grocery store. It was called a coffee crisp muffin. It didn't taste like coffee crisp at all, but it was good. It was tasty. It was like a kind of like a crunchy brown sugar on the top. It was yummy. So I hope you too have a good snack today and enjoy the rest of your whatever. In the meantime, I'll see y'all next week, next Tuesday, October the 29th at 3 p.m. We're going to meet back here and we're going to talk about chapters 18 and 19 all in one go. They're both kind of short. So hopefully we can get through a double whammy. What else? I think we're going to stream this weekend, probably on Saturday. We're going to have a Saturday stream where I'm probably going to play Splatoon. It's Splatfest this weekend. So we'll do a bit of Splatoon content for Splatfest. I don't know if I'll record, but I'll definitely stream. I might play Hypnagogia again this week. I kind of want to beat it before Halloween. I don't think we have a ton left to do. We're in World 4. I think there's 6 to 8 worlds, so we're chugging along. But we'll probably play Hypnagogia maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. Maybe Sunday? I don't know. Given that Splatfest is on Saturday, I don't know what to think there. We might even just do a double whammy. We might play Splatoon, we might do the Splatfest, and then we might go play Hypnagogia that afternoon. But stay tuned regardless. We're going to play games. We're going to have fun. If you're here for more of the bookish content, then yeah, hang out with us next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Otherwise, I think that's everything for this week. Once again, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And yeah, that's all I got. Bye-bye.